This is Ray Lewis. Many of you may know him for being a Super Bowl champion and one of the greatest linebackers in NFL history. He was one of the most dominant and legendary players from his era, but a lot of people don't realize just how special Ray was before getting to the league. And personally, I've always wondered how great he can be if he played in the new generation of football. So today I will be putting Ray Lewis into College Football 26. Let's see how he would turn out in this era of football as we follow him on his road to glory. Now in high school, Ray Lewis wore number 22, and he was easily the best player for the Kathleen High School football team. So we actually bring him back to the team in the year 2026, and it would not be long before Ray Lewis was dominating the opposing backfield. This man is already looking like a problem for opposing teams as he is helping his squad catch a win. And on top of that, people are already starting to see Ray Lewis as a top-tier recruit. Some coaches even heard he got some killer instincts, so hey, they want him on the team. They feel like he would fit right in. Regardless though, Ray Lewis has a few more weeks to decide on his college football future, but for now, he is just going to continue dominating on the gridiron. He even had a play where he came out here and said "Shablaka," forcing a fumble before picking it up and taking it to the crib for a touchdown. Ray Lewis was not to be messed with. This man was a dog. And soon it would become very clear that he was one of the top recruits in the nation. Ray Lewis was being looked at by every school in the country, including ones close to home. Ultimately though, Ray would come to his final game of his high school career. And unfortunately for the opposing team, Ray Lewis was destroying them all game. Not just by coming up with sacks, but also devastating tackles. And by the third quarter on a 3rd down and 18, Ray Lewis even said, "Wang!" coming up with a pick to help his team get the ball back, and at this point, Ray Lewis had done enough to become the #1 player in the country. Ray Lewis was an absolute beast, but now it is time for him to figure out where he would take his skills to in college, as it turns out that his top 3 choices are USC, Miami, and LSU. But hey man, y'all know exactly how that old saying goes, history always repeats itself. So once again, for Ray Lewis's college decision, he would ultimately decide to sign with the Miami Hurricanes. And now that Ray Lewis is here in Miami, he is already looking like an elite prospect. He came out here during training camp and proved that he was going to be just as physical as anybody on the field. As a true freshman before even starting a game, it was pretty clear that Ray Lewis was one of the best players on the team. So the coaches had no choice but to make sure that he was going to be the starting linebacker heading into the season. And although Ray Lewis will not have his old defense like when he was actually in college, that included an NFL Hall of Famer in Warren Sapp and even Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Regardless, Ray Lewis still feels confident in his team, as he feels like his squad has a chance to compete for the national championship. But all that starts right here as they head into their first game of the season against Central Michigan. Now on the first drive of his new college football career, Ray Lewis is already setting the tone for his team. He helped his team push their opponents to a 3rd down and 8 where they luckily were able to come up with the stop. Unfortunately, Miami's offense would turn it over in their own territory, allowing Central Michigan an opportunity to put up some points. Miami would end up holding them to only 3 in the first quarter, and by the second quarter, this defensive line was dominating the offense. They already had 3 sacks in the first half, and unfortunately for Central Michigan, it would not stop there because in the 3rd quarter, they would get sacked again, but this time they would fumble and Miami would recover, giving the Hurricanes the ball back and already doing enough to get them their first win of the season. Miami takes care of business 23-6. And although Ray Lewis didn't have any solo tackles, interceptions, or anything, he did have 7 assisted tackles. So he was definitely flying around the field in this one, and he was happy about getting his first win. But he's hoping that it'll only just be one of many throughout the season. It was not going to get much easier though, especially heading into their next game, where Miami will be going into their first matchup on the road, and they'll be set to face off against South Carolina. Now on the very first play of the game, Ray Lewis decided to come out here and smack this running back into next week. Oh yeah, I ain't gonna lie, that boy definitely gonna have some CTE, I promise. Regardless, Ray was setting the tone for this defense, and it was not gonna stop in the first quarter as he would smack the running back again. Ray Lewis helped his team hold their opponents to a 3rd down and long, where it looked like on this play there was absolutely nobody open, and Miami would end up coming up with another stop. This game was now 10-0 in the second half, and South Carolina really started to lock in, as they picked up a couple first downs to get them down to the 15-yard line, where on 2nd and 5, Ray Lewis seen the running back and said "Shablaka," Oh my, that boy finna be a basketball player by the end of the day. Now this Hurricane defense would end up getting the stop, holding South Carolina to 3 points, but Miami would go back up by 2 possessions in the fourth quarter. Unfortunately, South Carolina decided that it was time for them to step it up, so they would go on to take a shot deep over the top that not only was caught, but it was taken to the crib for a touchdown. Miami was now in a position where they were only up by 6 points, and South Carolina had a chance to win this game. It turns out though that somebody else had a different idea. Because on this play, Ray Lewis decided to drop back into coverage and say, Ray Lewis is coming up with the pick, and with South Carolina having no timeouts left, it looks like he had just done enough to help his team get another win on the season. Ray Lewis helps his team win 16-10 after coming up with an incredibly clutch play with a minute left in the game. He made a huge play that obviously had his coaches happy with the way that he'd been playing, and it's safe to say that they were definitely looking forward to seeing how great he would be moving forward throughout the season. They felt like they might have one of the best linebackers in the nation on their team, and they could not wait for him to continue proving it, as Miami was now heading into the next game at home against FCS Southeast. Now Miami had been dominating this game all throughout, but in the second quarter, Ray Lewis came up with his first sack of his college football career. He makes a huge play on third down that helps his team go up 3-0. We're now here in the third quarter. It is pretty clear that FCS Southeast is not going to be able to score much today. This defense continued to come up with stops, as by the fourth quarter they were up 9-0. And at this point this game was already put away, but after this fourth down where this pass fell incomplete, Miami was now moving on to 3-0 on the year. The Hurricanes were on a roll to start the season, and Ray Lewis was a big reason why, as he was consistently coming up with plays. Turns out though that heading into the next game, the coaches needed him to be even better. In his next game, they needed 3 tackles from him and at least 1 tackle for loss. So Ray knew that heading into the next one, he would have to work hard to improve upon his skills, as Miami was heading into one of their biggest matchups of the season. They were not only going to be heading on the road, but the Hurricanes were about to face off against another top 25 team in the nation, as they will now be set to face off against the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Now on this opening drive, unfortunately, Notre Dame was definitely moving their way down the field. They got to the 23-yard line on a first down, where on this play Ray Lewis knew that he had to bring this quarterback to the ground. He comes up with his second sack of the season that pretty much derails this drive, as they would eventually be pushed to a third down and 15, where on this play Ray Lewis again was coming up with the stop. So this defense comes off the field, but by the second quarter it is still 3-0, and it looks like Notre Dame is moving back down the field. They got into a third down and 14 with another chance to come up with the stop, but Ray Lewis was not fast enough to catch this ball. So Notre Dame would end up moving down to the goal line on a 3rd and inches, where Miami comes up with the stop. They are able to hold Notre Dame to another 3 points, but by the third quarter, the statistics for each team is starting to look a little crazy. Miami has less than 35 yards on the day, and they've had the ball for less than a minute and a half of game time. Ray Lewis was doing everything he could to try and help his team come up with stops, but it looks like nothing was working. They got Notre Dame to a 3rd down and 7, where this will be the last chance for them to win this game. All they have to do is just come up with a stop, which they could not. And unfortunately, Miami was going to take their first loss of the season. The Hurricanes would fall 3-0 in this one, as their offense was not able to score a single point. They got shut out despite the fact that Ray Lewis and the rest of his defense had played their hearts out, as Ray comes up with 6 total tackles and a sack on the day. So it's definitely unfortunate that they lost their first game, but on the bright side, unlike his old days, Ray Lewis is now able to get NIL deals. And I'll tell you what, right now, man, he's taking that money. We going to the club tonight. Regardless, at this point, Miami is now the 12th ranked team in the nation, and they know that they're going to have to work real hard in order to get themselves back within the top 10. Ray Lewis feels like this team has a real chance at competing for a national championship. But hey man, they're going to have to prove that they deserve to get there as they head into their next game at home against Boston College. Now Miami is now heading into conference play, and they know that these games matter the most, which is why in this first half they were absolutely locking up Boston College. They came up with multiple stops in this one, but this game was still 0-0 by the fourth quarter, where even then both offenses were still not able to do jack shit, and this game would end up going into overtime, where once again Ray Lewis was helping his team make some plays, as the Hurricanes held the Eagles to a 3rd down and 7, and they were going to try to force Boston College to take a field goal, which they did after this sack. This Hurricane defense comes up clutch in overtime, and ultimately they do enough to come up with another win on the season. Miami is now 4-1 after barely squeaking this one out 6-3. Ray Lewis would end the game with literally just 2 assisted tackles, so definitely not his best performance, but you know what, he's going to make up for it heading into his next game, because now Miami is going to be headed back on the road, where they will be matched up against another ACC opponent in North Carolina. Now this looked like it was going to be another defensive battle all throughout the first half, as North Carolina was going for it on 4th down and 4. But this Hurricane defense was coming up with a huge stop at the goal line. This defense makes a play that allows their offense to go up 7-0 in the second quarter, where with less than a minute left, Ray Lewis was getting right through this offensive line and coming up with another sack on the season. Ray Lewis was making a huge play that led his opponent to another 3rd down and long, where luckily this defense came up with another stop. Miami was now up 10-0 in the 4th quarter, and Ray Lewis was a huge reason why. He continued to make huge plays all throughout this one, and ultimately North Carolina had no answers for this defense, as they would go on to get stopped on a 4th down, ultimately doing enough to help Miami win another game on the year. The Hurricanes closed this one out 13-7, and Ray Lewis had a big game with 4 total tackles, with 2 of them being for loss and 1 sack. He is looking like he has potential to become one of the top linebackers in the nation. But at this point, Miami is only halfway through their season, and Ray knows that there are still quite a few games left. So he feels like going forward, he still has a ton to prove, which he is definitely looking forward to doing as he heads into his next game at home against an in-state rival, as they're set to face off against Florida State. Now on the very first play of the game, Florida State tries running some bullshit in the backfield, but Ray Lewis says, "Wayne, come here, boy." Ray Lewis comes up with the sack to start this game off with the Hurricanes, ultimately bringing his team to a 3rd down and 28, where Ray Lewis has an opportunity to make a play, but he misses this tackle. Luckily, though, his teammates were there to get the job done for him. Now, Miami would continue to lock up this offense pretty much all throughout this first half, as by the 3rd quarter, Florida State only had 3 points, and it looked like it might be hard for them to put up any more when Ray Lewis was making plays like this. He gets a big stop in the backfield to hold FSU to 3rd down and 11, where now all they're going to do is just hold this team to another field goal, but not only did they let up a 1st down, but they let up a touchdown. Miami is now down 10-3 by the end of the 4th quarter. Luckily, they have another opportunity to come up with a stop here, so Ray Lewis is locked in, but he gets beat over the middle, but thankfully that quarterback is trash. The Hurricanes come up with the stop, and now their offense has a chance to go down the field and tie this game up, which they do. This one is heading into overtime, where Miami knows that they're going to have to start coming up with some big plays. So that's exactly why Ray Lewis came out here and forced a fumble that unfortunately was recovered by Florida State. Luckily though, like I said, that Florida State quarterback is garbage, and after holding FSU to a field goal, it looks like Miami had done enough to come up with another victory on the year. They just barely win this one 13-16 in overtime, but they couldn't have got it done without an amazing effort from this defense that was led mostly by guys like Ray Lewis, who had 6 total tackles, 2 of them being for a loss and a sack. Ray Lewis was continuing to prove how dominant of a player he could be, as although he is only just a true freshman, many people are considering him to be one of the best linebackers in the nation. So moving forward, Ray made it a point to hold himself to that standard, especially now that he was heading into another game against another top 25 ranked team, with Miami now set to face off against Pittsburgh. Now on his opening drive of this game, Ray Lewis would get to the line of scrimmage as he was trying to get a sack, but one of his teammates actually forced a fumble, allowing Ray Lewis to recover. Miami gets the ball back after a Ray Lewis turnover, and they are now up 7-0 in the second quarter. Right at this point, it looks like Miami is completely locked in until Ray Lewis gets fried off the line of scrimmage. And yeah, buddy, this receiver is going to the end zone for a touchdown. Definitely not a great play for Ray, but all throughout this game, this defense continued to be locked in. And ultimately, they would do enough to move to 7-1 on the season. Miami takes down a top 20 ranked team in the nation. And to be honest, this is definitely not a game where Ray Lewis played his best, as he only had 3 tackles and a fumble recovery, but still he did enough to help his team win. But not only did Miami win, but he would also earn another NIL deal, along with helping Miami secure their spot as a top 5 team in the nation. This team looked absolutely locked in, and they were going to try and keep it that way as they were now heading on the road to face off against another ACC opponent in Wake Forest. Now this is a game where from start to finish, Ray Lewis is all over the field. This man will come up with multiple tackles on this opening drive, and after a 3rd down where one of his teammates came up with a sack, Miami would now be up 7-0 by the end of the second quarter. At this point, Miami had all the momentum on their side. And unfortunately for Wake Forest, it didn't look like that was going to change anytime soon after Ray Lewis said, "Wayne," coming up with another pick on the season, and in a game where this defense was pretty much dominating all throughout. It turns out that they had already done enough to take down Wake Forest. Miami wins this one 17-9. And Ray Lewis was one of the biggest reasons why, as he came up with multiple tackles and a pick. This defense was looking phenomenal with Ray Lewis leading the way, as the coaches were consistently challenging him to be better. And Ray knew that that was something he'd have to be if he wanted his team to keep winning. Miami was now the 4th ranked team in the nation with a real chance at winning a national title. But in order to do that, they'd have to stay on track as they head into their next game on the road against the Clemson Tigers. Now, it looked like Ray Lewis was locked in early on in this one as he came up with a tackle for loss on the opening drive. He was setting the tone for his team as he pushed his defense to a 3rd down and 11. And ultimately, one of his teammates would come up with a sack to derail this drive. This would be a 14-0 ball game by the end of the second quarter, where down at the goal line, Clemson is threatening to put up some points. Thankfully, Ray Lewis was doing everything he could to not let that happen. And on his 3rd down and goal, it would actually be him who came up with the stop at the 1-yard line, holding Clemson to only 3 points as Miami still has a 2-possession lead by the 3rd quarter. But unfortunately for Clemson, despite the fact that they started to drive down the field a little bit and even put up another field goal, by the 4th quarter they were down 2 possessions with less than a minute left. And at this point, all Miami had to do was just not let up a miracle, which they didn't, and ultimately they were moving on to 9-1 on the season. The Hurricanes get the job done 17-12, and Ray Lewis was definitely leading the way in this one with 9 total tackles and one of them being for a loss. The Hurricanes only had 2 games left in the regular season, and it's looking like they have a real good chance at making the playoffs. All they have to do is just finish out the regular season and stay locked in heading into their next game against Stanford. And in the first quarter, it looked like they definitely were, because on this opening drive, Ray Lewis would say, as he comes up with another pick, and it looks like he has the chance to take this one all the way to the crib for a touchdown, but nah, he's too slow. Regardless, Ray Lewis makes a huge play that sets the tone for his team. And unfortunately for Stanford, this was only just the beginning, because along with coming up with an interception in the first quarter, Ray Lewis would go on to smack this man into next week. This defense was dominating Stanford all throughout the first half, as by the end of the second quarter, it was already 14-0, but then it became 16-0 after this safety. Miami would go on to take a 26-7 lead. And although Stanford would eventually cut this deficit back with a touchdown, it was already too little too late, as Miami was now moving on to 10-1 on the year, as they come up with another big victory against an ACC opponent. Ray Lewis once again had another big day with multiple tackles and even an interception. This man was already a force to be reckoned with, but the crazy thing is that he's still only just getting better. And unfortunately for Miami's next opponent, they would have to find out the hard way that Ray Lewis was not messing around. Because on the very opening drive against Virginia Tech, Ray Lewis once again found himself in position to come up with another pick. He forces a turnover off this quarterback's crazy-ass pass, allowing his team to get the ball back and go up 7-0 already. And it turns out that would only be the beginning of a big day from Ray, as he was dominating this offense all throughout the first half. At one point, he even helped his team get to a 2nd down and 16, where it looked like this offensive line was not accounting for Ray Lewis as he got home for a sack. Ray Lewis is not even out of the first quarter, and he already has an interception and a sack on the day. He was already having a phenomenal performance, but by the 4th quarter, his team was now up 28-0. And at this point, after Ray Lewis came out here and helped get another tackle, it looked like he had done enough to help his team close out the regular season with a win. Miami would end the regular season 11-1. Miami was now the 4th ranked team in the country, and it now looks like they might have a chance to win an ACC championship, as they were invited to the biggest game of their season against the #1 team in the nation. Now, I have no idea how Duke is the #1 team in the nation, but you know what? This is how college football works. Absolutely anything could happen, so Ray knows that his team still has a chance at winning. So he's going to do everything he can to help his team get the job done against Duke. Now, just like they had all throughout the season, this defense was absolutely locking up. Duke would literally only have 3 points by the end of the first half, but Miami still had 0, which was becoming even more of a problem despite the fact that the Hurricanes came up with another stop, because now Duke was up 6-0 in the second half. Luckily, the Hurricanes would hold them to a 3rd down and 21, where they pretty easily came up with another stop, ultimately bringing us to the 4th quarter, where Ray Lewis watched from the sidelines as his offense was trying to score some points, but they could not. There is now 2 minutes left in the ACC championship, and Ray Lewis is doing everything he can to help give his team a chance. Unfortunately, though, the Blue Devils just continued to pick up first downs, and it was starting to really not look good for Miami. Miami had to keep taking their timeouts, and it looked like they might fall to the #1 team in the nation. So at this point, Ray Lewis knew that he had to come up with a huge play. His team needed somebody to make something happen. So that's why on the 2nd down and 13, with the game pretty much on the line, Ray knew that he had to come out here and say, Ray Lewis just smacked the dog shit out this man, forcing him to fumble and allowing Miami an opportunity to get downfield and win this game. All they had to do is literally go 8 yards in order to score a touchdown, but they could not. And despite the fact that Ray Lewis made an immaculate play, the Miami Hurricanes would go on to lose the ACC championship. The Hurricanes definitely fought hard in this one, but unfortunately, their offense was garbage. This is like the third time this team put up 0 points, and unfortunately it happens again in the ACC Championship for them to lose. Regardless, Ray Lewis had a big day with multiple tackles, including a forced fumble that gave his team a chance to potentially win. Despite the loss though, Ray's coaches were extremely happy with him. He proved all season that he was an incredible player, maybe not enough to win the Heisman Trophy like this quarterback from SMU did, but eventually Ray would go on to earn himself second team All-ACC. As a true freshman, this man went for 24 tackles, 41 assisted tackles, and 14 tackles for loss. He had an outstanding season, especially for a true freshman, as he would also earn himself freshman All-American honors. Ray Lewis so far was having a phenomenal season, but thankfully he knew that he still had a chance to be even better, because now, unlike Ray Lewis's first time around in college, he will have a chance to compete in the college football playoffs, where in this first round Miami will have a game at home, and they will be able to move on if they can take down the Tulane Green Wave. Now, just like all season, this defense was locked in throughout the first half, and despite the fact that Tulane drove down the field in the second quarter, they would still get stopped at a 3rd down and goal. So this game was now 3-0 by the third quarter, and Ray knew that if his offense wasn't going to do much, then his defense was going to have to pick up the slack. They held Tulane to a 3rd down and 7, where luckily they were once again able to get a stop. And finally, after 3 whole quarters, Miami would finally put up some points, tying this one up at 3. Bringing us to the fourth quarter, where it looks like the tides had completely turned towards Miami's favor, because after the Hurricanes come up with the stop on this 3rd down, they now go up 10-3 with less than 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter. But now Tulane is driving down the field, and they are threatening to put up points to either tie this game up or potentially even win. So once again, Ray knows that this defense is going to have to lock in. They're going to need somebody to make a play when it matters most. So that's why in this one, Ray Lewis decided to say, Ray Lewis comes up with the pick, and it looks like he has room to get down the sideline and get himself to the end zone for a touchdown. The first touchdown of his college football career. And it could not have come at a better time, as he not only helps his team extend their lead, but at this point, it's looking like Ray Lewis has done enough to help his team get to the next round of the playoffs. Miami wins this one 17-10, and Ray Lewis is the biggest reason why. He had come up with multiple plays throughout this game, but none bigger than his pick 6 that helped seal the victory for the Hurricanes. Ray Lewis had an incredible performance that not only made his coaches happy, but he also earned a Defensive Player of the Week. But Ray was out here working hard to make sure that he has another big game like that, because he knows that it's not going to get much easier. He knows that his team is only a few games away from making the national championship. But the only way to get there would be by making it through their next couple rounds, starting with their next game in the Cotton Bowl against the Michigan Wolverines. Now, this defense came out here fired up as they held the Wolverines to 3rd down and eventually came up with the stop on the opening possession. Unfortunately, their offense was not able to capitalize though. But with Michigan now backed up against their own 1-yard line, this defense saw an opportunity to come up with a safety. The Hurricane defense puts up the first points on the board as they take down this running back in the end zone. Unfortunately though, once again, this offense was not able to capitalize. So they had to rely on this defense to bail them out again, which they did after this Ray Lewis pass deflection. Miami's defense was going crazy throughout the first half as they had not allowed a single point. By the second half though, that looked like it might begin to change, as Michigan was slowly moving themselves into field goal range, and they even had a chance to put up a touchdown here on 3rd down and 8. But luckily this pass would fall incomplete, so Michigan would only come away with 3 points in this drive, but it would be enough for them to take the lead by the fourth quarter, where at this point Ray Lewis knew that he had to stay locked in. So on this play he said, "Sit your ass down, boy," and came up with a big tackle. He helped hold Michigan to a 3rd down and 6, where this defense had an opportunity to get off the field, but Ray Lewis had multiple guys in his zone and let up a 1st down. There is now less than a minute and a half left in this game, and Ray Lewis is doing everything he can to keep his team in it. He helped his squad get back to a 3rd down and 7 with another chance to get off the field. They can give their offense an opportunity to come up with a win if they could just get one more stop, but this defense could not get it done. The Miami Hurricanes let up a 1st down on this play, and unfortunately with them having already used a timeout, it's looking like this will officially be the end of Ray Lewis's freshman season. Miami goes on to lose this one 2-3. I mean, even I didn't realize just how crazy it is to lose a game like this. His offense once again didn't put up a single point. And the wild thing about this is that this is like the 4th time this season where this offense gets completely shut out. There is literally no amount of defense that could have helped them win this game, so truthfully it does suck to see them lose this way. As far as their season stats though, Ray Lewis would go on to have a phenomenal freshman season. 27 solo tackles, 43 assisted tackles, 14 tackles for loss, 4.5 sacks, in 5 picks. Not to mention he also had 2 forced fumbles. Ray Lewis had made some incredible plays all year, but unfortunately his offense could not do the same. So heading into the offseason, Ray Lewis was really thinking about entering the transfer portal because he didn't know if he really believed that his team could win a championship anymore. Regardless, heading into the offseason, Ray was going to have a ton of options and a big decision to make. But I'll leave that decision up to you guys. If you want to see a part 2 of Ray Lewis, be sure to get this video to 1,000 likes and subscribe to the channel down below. Also be sure to comment down below what else you guys want to see next, and YouTube thinks you'll like one of these other videos until the next one comes out. If you got to this point, just know that I appreciate you more than you'll ever know. I hope you all have an incredible rest of your week, and other than that, I'm gonna catch you guys next time.